The year is 53 BC. The Ninth Legion has been marching for 11 days. A centurion breaks formation. He kneels by the river. He cups water to his lips. He never stands up again. They found his body at dawn, full armor, sword still sheathed. No wounds, no blood, just his face, frozen in a scream that never made a sound. In the ancient world, the deadliest enemy wasn't the one holding a sword. It was the one you couldn't see, the one that didn't need a sword, the one that was already behind you before you knew it existed. These are the 10 monsters that terrified the armies of history. Creatures that made legions retreat, empires redraw their maps, and veterans refused to speak until the day they died. We ranked them by 3 factors: body count in historical records, psychological impact on entire armies, and one question that changes everything: could you survive an encounter? By number 3, the answer is no. By number 1, there is no answer. There is no strategy. There is nothing. This is the Immortals, where legends never die. Subscribe and take your place in the ranks of legends. Let's begin. Number 10. The Kappa, the Shadow Drowners. 2 seconds of silence. The water goes quiet. A single bubble breaks the surface. That's the last thing you hear. You haven't slept in 3 days. Your katana is chipped. Your throat burns like you swallowed ash. When you see the river through the pines of Shizuoka, your body moves before your mind can stop it. You kneel, you reach. The water makes no sound. The surface is perfectly still. Not calm, still. The kind of still that doesn't exist in nature. And then you see them. 2 yellow eyes just below the surface. Skin the color of rot. Before your fingers touch your blade, something cold and webbed locks around your throat with the grip of iron shackles. You go under. You don't come back up. The Kappa. Feudal Japan's silent executioner. Samurai didn't just fear steel, they feared still water. Veterans passed down one rule to every new recruit. If the river stops making sound, you run. You don't look. You don't think. You run. The creature is the size of a child. Turtle shell. A beak that snaps bone like dry wood. But the thing that made it lethal was the Sara, a shallow dish on top of its skull filled with river water. If the dish stays full, the Kappa has the strength of 10 men. If it dries, it dies. Simple. Except you'll never get close enough to test that, because the Kappa didn't want your gold or your land. It wanted the Shirikodama, a mythical orb hidden inside the human body that held the soul. To be killed by a Kappa wasn't just death, it was erasure. No afterlife, no peace, no trace of you left in any world. The most infamous account comes from a unit crossing the Chugo River at night. The soldiers at the rear started disappearing. No screams, no splashing, just the soft pop of bubbles on the surface. By dawn, the bodies had washed ashore. No wounds, no marks. But every single face was locked in an expression of pure frozen terror. Whatever they saw under that water broke them before it killed them. And the Kappa were intelligent. They learned names. They mimicked voices. They would call you to the water's edge using the exact words of your commanding officer. The voice of someone you'd die for, leading you to the thing that would kill you. But there was one weakness, one absurd, almost laughable weakness. Politeness. If you bowed before the Kappa attacked, it was compelled by some ancient instinct to bow back. And when it leaned forward, the water spilled from its head. Paralyzed, powerless. You could walk away from a god of the deep because it couldn't resist good manners. Survival rate if encountered 40%, but only if you know the trick. If you don't, 0. Here's what keeps this story breathing. In 2014, researchers found a species of giant salamander living in the exact rivers where Kappa sightings were reported for centuries. An animal that sits motionless underwater. That grabs prey with shocking speed. That has rough, dark skin and flat, wide eyes. Coincidence? Maybe. But the soldiers who drowned in those rivers didn't think so. For the ancient warrior, the river was never a source of life. It was a hunting ground. And you were never the predator. But the Kappa at least gave you a chance. A ridiculous, humiliating chance, but a chance. The next creature on this list doesn't negotiate. It doesn't respect rituals. It doesn't wait in the water. It rises from it. And when it does, it doesn't stop until everything around it is ash. Number 9. The Draugr, the Tomb Walkers. Even the bravest Vikings feared what rose from the grave. In the frozen north, death doesn't end the war, it starts one. You're camped in the wastelands of Iceland. Night falls fast this far north. Your captain orders camp near a hogger, the burial mound of an ancient warrior king. Nobody wants to be here, but the cold is killing you faster than any enemy could. You smell it first. Damp earth, rusted iron, something sweet and rotten underneath. The air turns thick, heavy, wrong. Then the ground trembles, not an earthquake. Something is digging, from below, from inside the mound, clawing through frozen soil with fingers that should have rotted centuries ago. The Draugr. These weren't the fragile skeletons of modern fiction. Hulking corpses, skin turned necrotic blue or ashen black, supernaturally heavy, strong enough to crush a horse's ribcage with one blow. Norse soldiers believed that if a man died consumed by revenge or greed, his spirit refused to leave the body, trapped in rotting flesh, but burning with a fury that made living warriors seem like children. The real terror wasn't facing something that didn't breathe. It was that the Draugr kept the intelligence of its former life. It could speak, it could curse, it could wield its old weapons with terrifying mastery, and it could enter your dreams, night after night, whispering, tormenting, dragging you to the edge of madness before it ever touched you. The sagas say they could grow at will. Imagine waking in your tent and seeing a face the size of a boulder through the opening, eyes glowing with ancient hatred, not attacking, just staring, waiting. A thrust to the heart was useless. The only way to stop a tomb walker was to take the head, burn the body to ash, scatter those ashes in the sea, far from any human settlement. Viking armies drove stakes through the feet of their own dead after every battle, placed open scissors on their chests, their own brothers, their own friends, a desperate ritual to make sure the men they fought beside wouldn't rise that same night to kill them. Survival rate, 15%, and that's generous. In the Norse world, the grave was not a place of rest. It was a cell, and sometimes it opened from the inside. The Draugr rose from the earth. At least you could see it coming. The next creature on this list, you'll never see it. You'll only hear it. And by then, it's already too late. Number 8. The Bargist, the shackled hound of fate. If you hear a bark in the dark, you're already dead. You're an archer, part of a patrol crossing a mountain pass in northern England. The mist is so thick you can't see your own feet. Your fingers are numb on the bowstring. You tell yourself it's just fog, just cold, just another march. Then you hear it. Metal, chains, dragging across stone, slow, heavy, coming from everywhere at once. Your whole unit stops. Nobody speaks. The clatter of your armor is swallowed by something else. Breathing, deep, heavy. Not from any of your men. The Bargist, not a dog. A demonic specter in the shape of a colossal hound the size of an ox, fur black as coal, eyes burning with spectral fire, and chains, always chains, dragging behind it like the shackles of the damned. But here's what made the Bargist worse than anything else on this list. It didn't come to kill you. It came to tell you that you were already going to die. The Bargist appeared only to those destined to perish, a herald of the underworld, a walking death sentence wrapped in black fur and fire. When it appeared, the air turned so cold your lungs cracked. Courage drained from the bravest men alive. Survivors described absolute paralysis. You couldn't run, couldn't scream, could only watch. It walked on water, passed through walls. Its claws didn't seek flesh. They marked souls. Mercenaries swore that if the Bargist sat in the path of a military column, that unit would never return. Not one man. It didn't attack in masses. It chose. It would stare at one soldier with those flaming eyes, and whoever met its gaze would die before the year was out. A stray arrow, an infected wound. Madness. Didn't matter how. The Bargist had already decided. Medieval armies started leading hunting dogs blessed by priests at the front of their ranks. They believed only the instinct of a pure animal could detect the specter before it was too late. Survival rate, 0. You don't fight destiny. A distant bark in the night was never a wild animal. It was the sound of your own death, calling your name from the shadows. Everything up to this point has been creatures that lurk, that hide, that wait. The next one doesn't hide, it charges. And it used to be human. Number 7. Werewolves, the bloodthirsty raiders. Even Rome's legions feared the full moon. You're a Roman centurion, 12th Legion, camped at the edge of the Germanic forests, full moon. Your sentries aren't watching for enemy banners. They're watching for a change in the wind. You know the briefing. You've heard the reports from the scouts who came back, and the silence from the ones who didn't. Then the forest explodes. A howl, not human, not animal. Something in between that makes every hair on your body stand. You grab your gladius, you form up. But what comes out of the tree line doesn't care about your formation. It leaps over the palisade with a speed that shouldn't be possible for something that size. Lands in the middle of your sleeping men. And it doesn't stop. The werewolf legend wasn't born from literature, it was born from war reports. Roman legions venturing into the forests of Germania brought back accounts that commanders tried to suppress. Because the truth was worse than any rumor. Soldiers swore there were clans who, through forbidden rituals or enchanted animal skins, renounced their humanity to become apex predators. For an army in shield wall formation, a werewolf attack was absolute chaos. A force that respected no tactics and felt no pain from steel. Survivors described giant men covered in thick fur, elongated snouts, eyes reflecting campfire light with a malignant glow. They sought no prisoners, no loot, only blood. Pure, unquenchable bloodlust beyond human rage. The most feared tales spoke of wolf warriors, enemy battalions who, when outnumbered, resorted to lycanthropy as a final weapon. Beneath the skin of a fallen enemy, the heart of a beast was sometimes found still beating. This belief ran so deep that war manuals gave a chilling order. Any enemy, with hair on their palms or joined eyebrows, executed immediately, body burned. Not cruelty, survival. Because soldiers didn't just fear death, they feared contagion. A single claw wound could turn you into the very thing you hated most. Survival rate, 20% in daylight. Under a full moon, 5. Once the sun set, plate armor meant nothing against something that could smell your fear from miles away. We're crossing into the top 5, and honestly, everything before this was a warm-up. What comes next made entire empires change their war strategies. Number 6. The Naga, kings of the sacred waters. The river doesn't just flow, it judges, and its verdict is final. You're a commander, 10,000 infantry, 40 war elephants, ordered to cross the Ganges during monsoon season. Night crossing. Surprise the enemy at dawn. The first elephants wade in. Water reaches their bellies. Everything according to plan. Then the river fights back. Whirlpools erupt against the current. Your elephants panic, trumpeting, thrashing. From the depths, something rises, scales shimmering like emeralds and rubies under torchlight. A body so massive it displaces the river itself. The Naga, not giant snakes, a race of semi-divine beings with intelligence and magic that could break the will of the most seasoned generals. Colossal serpent bodies with human torsos or multiple crowned heads, the absolute sovereigns of every body of water they claimed. They didn't attack with brute force, that was beneath them. They controlled the elements, mist so thick soldiers couldn't see their own hands. Flash floods that swept entire supply lines into the abyss. A calm river turned into a graveyard in seconds. But the deepest terror was the venom. It didn't just kill you, it cursed your bloodline. 7 generations, your children, their children, all marked, all damned. Because you crossed a river without permission, soldiers swore the Naga could take human form. Walk into your war council wearing the face of a trusted advisor. Sow discord, plant madness. Turn generals against each other. By the time you realized the enemy was at your own table, your army was already destroying itself from within. Before any campaign near water, armies made massive offerings: milk, flowers, gold, not gifts, apologies, survival rate. Depends entirely on your humility. Bow to the river you pass. Disrespect it, your entire bloodline pays. Against a serpent that summons storms, bronze armor is as useless as a dry leaf in the wind. The Naga controlled the water beneath you. But what happens when the threat isn't below? When it's above you, towering, blocking out the sun? Number 5. The Cyclops, the architects of chaos. A gaze that weighs more than a mountain. You're a Greek hoplite, trained your entire life for the phalanx. Shield to shield, spear forward, hold the line, that's all you know. Until today. Your patrol lands on a volcanic island, looking for water. The island is quiet, too quiet. Then you feel it before you hear it. A rhythmic thumping that makes the bronze of your breastplate vibrate against your chest. Not thunder. Footsteps, the tree line parts, a silhouette that breaks the horizon itself. One eye, one massive burning eye in the center of a face that could swallow your shield whole. The Cyclops, not savage giants, children of Uranus and Gaia, primordial beings whose strength rivaled the gods. For a hoplite trained in formation warfare, this was the denial of all military logic. What use is a spear wall against something that uproots a centuries-old oak as a club? What use is a shield line against a being that sinks a trireme by hurling a boulder the size of a house from a cliffside? The Cyclops didn't see soldiers as warriors. It saw them as livestock. Food, nothing more. That psychological dread alone destroyed battalion morale before a single blow was struck, but the fear went deeper. They were called the architects of chaos. The walls of Mycenae, stone blocks no human ingenuity could move. Soldiers swore only Cyclopean hands built them, and they forged Zeus's lightning bolt, Poseidon's trident, Hades' helm of invisibility, the weapons of gods, made by hands that could crush you without noticing. Survival rate, 10%. Only if you're as clever as Odysseus. Strength means nothing here. The Cyclops was a reminder. Humanity is an ant trying to survive in a world built by titans. The Cyclops shaped the earth beneath your feet, but what's coming next didn't just shape the land. It poisoned the very air armies breathed. Number 4. The Griffins, the hounds of Zeus. The gold of the mountains has a winged master, and it's watching you right now. You're part of a Persian supply caravan, ascending a forbidden mountain pass. The mission? Locate the legendary gold veins that sprout from the ground like roots. You've heard the warnings. You've ignored them. Gold does that to men. The horses stop first. They always know before you do. Ears flat, eyes wide, refusing to move. Then the shadow falls over your entire column. Not a cloud, something with wings. A deafening screech splits the mountain air. From the clouds descends a beast with the body of a lion and the head and wings of a giant eagle. It lands on the ridge above you, stares down with eyes that have been guarding this gold since before your civilization had a name. The Griffin, not an uncontrolled monster. The ultimate guardian, a divine sentinel whose loyalty belonged to the cosmos itself. For an infantryman, the Griffin was death coming from the sun. Talons the size of scythes, a beak that pierces bronze shields in a single strike. Mercenaries returning from northern routes spoke of nests built with golden threads, protected by beings that knew neither fear nor fatigue. A single griffin could lift a rider and their mount together, soar hundreds of feet into the air, then release them against the jagged rocks below. The terror lay in their dual nature. The raw strength of the lion fused with the speed and precision of the eagle. No testudo formation protects your neck from a diving attack at terminal velocity. No wall of spears reaches something that strikes from the clouds. Even Alexander the Great, in apocryphal chronicles, mentioned the fear his troops felt entering Griffin territory. The greatest conqueror in history looked at those mountains and said, "No, we go around. Survival rate, 5%. The ones who ran fast enough." The Griffin was absolute vigilance. The riches of the earth protected by guardians who never slept, never tired, and watched every movement from heights you couldn't reach. Now, we're in the top 3. Every creature so far had a weakness. A bow, a ritual, fire, cleverness. Number 3 has a weakness too, but using it only makes things worse. Number 3. The Lernaean hydra, the multiplied death. Sever one head, and the end comes twice as fast. This is the creature that broke the rules of war, because against the hydra, your bravery is the engine of your destruction. You're a scout sent into the perpetual mists of Lake Lerna. The air doesn't smell of water, it smells of sulfur and rot. Visibility is arm's length. Shields up, swords drawn. From the thicket, it emerges. A colossal body covered in black scales. Multiple long necks flailing like whips, each crowned by a serpent head hissing in unison. A chorus of death. Your bravest soldier steps forward. Perfect strike. His Xiphos severs a head clean off. For half a second there's hope. Then from the bubbling stump, 2 new heads erupt. Hungrier, angrier, he strikes again. 2 become 4, 4 become 8. Within minutes, a duel against one monster becomes a slaughter by a 20-headed nightmare attacking from every angle simultaneously. The Hydra paradox. The more you fight, the more you lose. Every act of courage feeds the thing that's killing you. Formation, shattered in seconds. You cannot hold a shield wall when coordinated attacks come from above, below, left, right, and behind, all controlled by a single intelligence that learns from every strike you make. But the physical danger was only the beginning. The Hydra's breath was a lethal gas that seared your lungs before you got close enough to swing. Its blood melted bronze, corroded flesh. Even the tracks it left in the mud stayed toxic for days. You could die from the Hydra without ever seeing it, just by walking where it walked. Survival rate, near 0, because the only way to beat it requires something no army possesses: the wisdom to stop fighting. The Hydra was the battle that cannot be won with brute force. a horror that feeds on your resistance, that transforms your courage into the engine of your annihilation. Every step you took toward victory, the abyss took 2 steps toward you. But what waits at number 2 didn't need venom, didn't need multiple heads, it only needed your eyes. Number 2, the Lamassu, guardians of the heavenly gates, the face of a man, the power of a god. Before these eyes, even the fiercest army felt a sacred panic. This one is different. Every creature on this list so far has been a predator, a hunter, a killer. The Lamassu doesn't hunt, it doesn't need to, it simply exists. And its existence is enough to break an army's will to fight. You're part of an invading force approaching the gates of Nineveh, tens of thousands of soldiers behind you. The greatest army your empire has ever assembled. You feel invincible, then you see them, flanking the entrance, stone figures of titanic proportions, beings with the body of a bull to represent indomitable earthly strength, eagle wings for dominion over the skies, and the serene bearded face of a crowned king staring directly at you with eyes that seem to follow your every step. Your legs stop moving, not because you chose to stop, because something deeper than your training, deeper than your loyalty, deeper than your fear of your own commander tells you, you should not be here. That is the power of the Lamassu. To the ancient warrior, these were not decorative statues. They were living sentinels, protective deities whose gaze could petrify the heart of the fiercest enemy. Assyrian soldiers swore that during the most desperate battles, the spirits of the Lamassu would leave their stone forms and fly over the battlefield, instilling superhuman courage in their own troops, and catastrophic, soul-crushing confusion in the invaders. A Lamassu possessed knowledge of all languages and the secrets of the universe. It could anticipate any tactic before your general even conceived it. Your battle plan was obsolete the moment you marched within sight of those wings. In the chronicles of royal scribes, entire armies fled upon seeing the shadows of the Lamassu's wings cast upon the sand, not because they were cowards, because they believed with absolute certainty that the wrath of the gods had materialized to erase them from existence. The terror was unique. It was not the fear of being devoured by a beast, it was sacred panic, the overwhelming, paralyzing realization that you are standing before divine justice, and you are guilty. A Lamassu did not attack with hatred, it attacked with cold, absolute determination to protect order from chaos. And here's the detail that haunted every soldier who ever saw one. They were depicted with 5 legs, so that no matter where you looked at them from, front or profile, they always appeared to be in motion, always stepping forward, always coming for you. Survival rate depends on which side you're on. If the Lamassu protects your city, you're invincible. If you're marching against it, turn around. Now, for the ancient soldier, the Lamassu represented victory guaranteed by heaven, a reminder that as long as those stone eyes watched the horizon, no human sword could prevail against the empire they had chosen to protect. Now, number 1, every creature on this list had a weakness. The Kappa had its bow, the Draugr could be burned, the Hydra could be outsmarted, the Lamassu could be avoided. Number 1 has no weakness, none, 0. Keep that in mind. Number 1, the Kraken, the devourer of fleets, the North Sea. Beneath your ship, hell has tentacles. In the deep abyss, there is no tactic, no bravery, and no escape. The sea is no longer yours. You can run from a giant, you can pray to a god, you can try to burn a hydra. But if you encounter the Kraken in the middle of the ocean, your story simply ends. There is no chapter 2. You're aboard a Viking longship. Open sea, the nearest land is 3 days behind you. The water beneath your hull is so deep that if you dropped a stone, it would fall for minutes before touching bottom. The first sign is the water. It begins to boil, but there's no heat. The sea, once deep and dark, turns a sickly green. Great masses of kelp and dead fish float to the surface around your ship. The stench hits you like a wall, sweet, rotten, ancient. Your lookout screams. But there's no land, there's no enemy fleet, there's nothing on the horizon. Because the enemy isn't on the horizon, it's beneath you. What rises from the depths is not a creature, it's a landscape, an island of living flesh, a back covered in barnacles and scars from battles fought before humans existed, stretching wider than your entire fleet, tentacle surface, each one as thick as the mast of your largest ship. Bristling with suckers the size of shields, one wraps around the hull, the wood doesn't crack, it explodes. Men are plucked from the deck like insects. No time to scream, no time to pray, just gone. The Kraken did not bite, it crushed, it demolished, And when it submerged, it created a whirlpool so massive, the Norse called it the maelstrom, a vortex that sucked down every vessel that had survived the initial attack. Your ship, your crew, your supplies, your legacy. All of it, spiraling down into a darkness where sunlight has never reached and never will. Ancient soldiers swore the kraken could remain dormant for centuries, mistaken for reefs, islands. Ships would anchor on its back without knowing, and it would sleep, patient, eternal, until it felt the weight of steel and blood upon its skin. And then it woke. The psychological terror of facing the devourer of fleets was the absolute void. On land you have ground beneath your feet, a wall at your back, a brother beside you. At sea, against the kraken, you are alone against the infinite. There is no formation, there is no retreat, there is no ground to stand on. Just black water, and something beneath it that is older than your gods. It was said its presence was heralded by a stench of death so overwhelming that it paralyzed entire crews. Captains, seasoned men who had survived dozens of battles, chose to fall on their own swords, rather than be dragged into the abyssal trenches where no light exists and no soul returns. Survival rate, 0. Absolute 0. And here's what will keep you up tonight. In 2004, a Japanese research team filmed a giant squid at 3,000 feet deep. Its tentacles were over 30 feet long. And that was a small one. The ocean is 70% of this planet. We've explored less than 5% of it. The sailors weren't lying. They weren't exaggerating. If anything, they were underestimating. The kraken holds the #1 spot because against it there is no tactic, no bravery, no divine intervention, no clever trick. It is the end of all paths, the master of all secrets, resting at the bottom of a sea that we still, to this day, do not understand. For the ancient warrior, the kraken was the final reminder, the undisputed, eternal proof of human insignificance. In a world of monsters, the kraken was the one that made the other monsters afraid. You just walked through 10 nightmares that rewrote history. 10 creatures that didn't just kill soldiers, they killed courage. They turned formations into stampedes, empires into ruins, brave men into believers. But here's the thing about legends, they don't ask for your permission. They don't care if you believe. They existed in the minds of every warrior who ever gripped a sword and whispered a prayer before battle, and that made them real enough. I have a question, and I want you to really think about this. Pick one, just one creature from this list. You're alone, no army, no backup, only the weapons that existed in that creature's era. A bronze sword, a bow, a torch. Whatever they had, that's all you get. Which one do you face? And more importantly, how do you survive? Drop your survival plan in the comments. Be specific. I want strategy, not bravery. The most brilliant, most ruthless, most creative survival plan gets pinned at the top, permanently. And if you're sitting there thinking, I could take all 10, you're either the greatest warrior who never lived, or you weren't paying attention. Either way, you belong here. Hit subscribe. You're one of us now. One more thing. We put the kraken at #1, the devourer of fleets, the thing that made other monsters afraid, and we stand by that. But there is one creature we left off this list, deliberately, because every expert we consulted said the same thing. Don't put that one in. People aren't ready. We listened. For now, if this video hits 100,000 likes, we stop listening. We reveal it, what it is, where it was feared, and why ancient civilizations didn't just fight it, they erased it from their records. 100,000 likes, that's the key. This has been The Immortals, where legends don't die. They just wait to be remembered, and if you're brave enough to go deeper into the dark, gods and gladiators, click now.